Finally, a source of raw, real, and honest information on healthcare issues that matter most. Welcome to BS Free MD. From the latest medical information to how to stay sane as a doctor or a patient, no subject is taboo, no BS is allowed. Now, let's welcome your hosts, Doctors May and Tim Hindmarsh.
Well. Today's guest, Sparkplug does not even begin to describe her. Marnie Boles, what do you say? She has a pro card in bodybuilding. She is part of a search engine optimization company that has been very successful. And when the winds of COVID started blowing through her life and kind of stinking the world up, she was like, something's not right here. And she took her vast experience in all things internet and started something called the Patriot Impact, and which we'll go through in detail. But this is a lot of fun, a great resource, and an amazing person. I know that May gets upset because we get political, but I think that
I like to just get physical, not political.
Yeah. Okay. Sure. So when medicine has been so ultimately corrupted by politics, and I think that, it's what I call the two virus theory. Was COVID real? Yes. Is COVID a virus? Yes. Did it infect people and kill people? No question. So that's one virus. But I think that the more kind of harsh or long-lasting virus is the political virus. The divisions in people, the divisiveness is one thing. The government overreach is another. The wackiness with which both sides go super nuts on certain things, which just blows my mind. Like I always said, the winds of COVID blew the nuts out of the trees, and they blew out, left-wing and right-wing nuts. No question about that. So, I think that politically, COVID should be a massive wake-up call for us. And Marnie has developed a resource for those of us that believe in the cause of liberty. So let's get on with the show. Well, today you are in for something amazing, a really great treat. We have Marnie Boles from Patriot Impact with us. And yes, this is a warning. This will get political, but that's okay. Because medicine has been so obviously corrupted with politics that to extricate ourselves and actually be able to practice medicine in the way that we seem fit, to be able to see the doctor you want to see and have it be your body and your choice, that means we're going to have to pick a lot of stinky, linty, gross politics out of the practice of medicine. Marnie was born in 1987 in Portland, Maine. She was an athlete for her entire life. Got her first job when she was 12 years old, and then moved into some really interesting hobbies. I actually started competing in figure, which is one of, I think you can correct me if I'm wrong, Marnie, but the International Bodybuilding Federation's classes for women.
Yep.
Got her pro card in 2008, I believe. Has competed all over the world, including in Israel, and for her actual real job, works for an SEO company doing internet optimization and this kind of stuff. So how did this bodybuilder / computer person end up becoming a political activist? Well, that's what we're going to find out today. It's actually really fascinating. Sometimes you get pissed off enough and you have a really good set of skills that you can say, I'm not going to, in a very twisted sister-like way, we're not going to take it anymore.
Yeah.
And start kicking ass and taking names. And Marnie is absolutely doing that with her project, The Patriot Impact. So we welcome you, Marnie Boles, to BS Free MD, and thank you so much for being here.
Thank you guys for having me. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. So take us, let's just start at kind of the beginning of the Patriot Impact. How did this happen? I mean, you had a busy life. You have obviously, some really intense hobbies. You
Sure.
have a business that you've been running. life is going along, I assume, fairly reasonably, and then COVID hits, and then the wheels come off the train. So take us from there.
Yeah, COVID hit. My husband works in professional sports, and I was already working from home. So for me, it was more about what businesses am I working with? Are they closed? Certain industries were completely shut down. I mean, I've told some of the partners at the company is, thank God I didn't have all my clients weren't restaurants, because that would have been tough. I work a lot in the medical industry, work with software companies, a lot of general contractors, which of course they stayed open. So as we came into the summer, I mean, if it's 100 degrees in Arizona or California or Florida, come hell or high water, I mean, your AC is going to be fixed at a hospital or a nursing home or a vet office or a residential service. Those guys didn't really miss a beat. And so that was a lot of my clientele. So the working from home thing, I'm like, hey, welcome to the club. You guys are working from home. So, with my husband, he was out of work, and we didn't really know what that was going to look like, as in the seasons were shut down. And so COVID was really interesting. And it was after about 2 weeks where I said, something isn't adding up here. So that was number one, were the lockdowns after 2 weeks. And also just how when you would go into, I guess, whether it was grocery stores, and if you weren't wearing a mask, and first it was, absolutely no masks, wear one mask, wear two masks. Actually, the masks, don't work, but maybe now you need three. And then there's arrows in the grocery store separating you like you're on an interstate. And then if the mask is below your nose, that, people would back up from you. There was just all of this stuff that you said, man, if I had the flu, I would just stay home. I wouldn't go around, my elderly or friends and family, or I wouldn't want to get my best friend sick or my brother or whatever the case. And when I saw it happen on a nationwide level and a worldwide level, and the mainstream media push fear, pumping fear, like oozing like a volcano and erupting. And I'm going, it's 85 degrees and sunny here in Florida and people are out surfing. I wouldn't know there was a pandemic if I didn't watch the TV. So that's how I'm going to live my life. So that's how I proceeded in the summer. My husband's season, things went on. It was an abbreviated year. And what really kicked it into overdrive, May and Tim, was the election. When the election happened with COVID, that was strike number 2. When the vaccine rolled out, and it was an entirely experimental, emergency use only, elderly need it. And when the mandates came, that's when I had enough. That was when I hit my tipping point of, we went from 2 weeks to slow the spread to draconian lockdowns to this is an experimental shot, which isn't a vaccine because it doesn't stop the spread or the transmission or death or any of it, to now we're going to mandate everyone to take it. And there's no liability held on anyone in big pharma. Now I have a problem. And the only one what I started to learn, and feeling very blessed to live in the state of Florida, because I am from Portland, Maine, where things are not that way, is that Ron DeSantis here in Florida wasn't going to mandate vaccines. And you weren't going to get fired if you chose not to take a vaccine. That was your choice. That was your right as an American and living in the state of Florida, and the government, the governor was going to uphold the Constitution and our First Amendment rights and all of that. And seeing other people around the country start to lose jobs, I mean, I was on fire. And just having so much empathy and compassion for the situations of, I'm in a bubble in Florida, but what can I do to try to help someone out there who's struggling? I mean, it was just incredible. And it came so quick, So that's kind of where I was fired up, and the Patriot Impact was the solution to put my anger into action, really.
So when did Patriot Impact start officially?
Officially, we launched on Veterans Day of 2021. And it was right then and there. I had the opportunity to speak at a Clay Clark event, and had met some folks, different doctors. I had met Mike Lindell and General Michael Flynn and Lynn Wood. I had just met some folks standing up. I had met Dr. Northrup, just recently met Dr. McCullough. I mean, I've just been meeting doctors. And I think another thing that always came to mind throughout all of this is, how can some of the most world-renowned doctors, one of the most peer-reviewed doctors, if they are speaking something, and even knowing Lynn Wood is a defamation lawyer, who has something to lose if they say something? And if you're not concerned with what this doctor says, why in God's name would you rip it down off the internet? Right? The media is supposed to have our back. That is why, get it out there, get the truth out there. It's either false or it isn't, one way or the other. But if you're not even going to let it be heard, I think it was Dr. Robert Malone who said the truth is like a lion. Let it out and let it free, and it will defend itself, right? The quote by St. Augustine. Just let it out there. And so we have come to this point in the last 24, 28 months, or whatever the duration is, that we have one person who, if you don't have a mask, even in an airport, while no one else is wearing them outside of an airport, they're going around and they think, if you aren't as vaccinated as you possibly could be, based on what the CEO of Moderna, Pfizer, Johnson & Johnson, and AstraZeneca told you this morning on said mainstream media news, you're not vaccinated enough, and that's healthy. So I have a problem with that, because they keep changing the narrative versus let's look at, a healthy lifestyle. Let's look at therapies to get you through it. And why do I even have to go to the hospital in the first place, potentially, if I'm a healthy individual? I'm not talking about folks with comorbidities. And so the whole thing, guys, there was just Swiss cheese. It was holes from the beginning of, let's vaccinate, a set amount of people, to let's just vaccinate everyone as much as we possibly can. Just vax. I mean, it was just, and so there's been some of us out here, including yourself, there's folks pushing back and saying, no, let's think about what we're thinking about. So the Patriot Impact, came out in November, and we've launched and we're growing. So yeah, looking forward to walking you guys through it.
Yeah, absolutely. So the thing that we go, like, are we just nuts? Are we the nuts ones? Because this just seems so crazy. And then the thing that always brought me back to, no, you're not crazy, was the censorship. Because if somebody is giving a insane, crazy argument,
Sure.
you turn the volume up. You don't turn the volume down. You let them be super crazy. And again, like the truth being a lion, they just discredit themselves, and away they go. They just disappear. You don't censor crazy. You censor someone you're scared shitless of.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's funny you bring that up, because I was a communications major at the University of Southern Maine, and I remember it was my junior year with Professor Dr. Erica Anderson, and we were studying, and she said, in China, guys, right now, so this is 2008, she said, if you write something or say something that the government doesn't like, do you know that they will take it down? And I said, what do you, I immediately raised my hand, the Spitfire that I am. I was like, what do you mean they take it down? She goes, well, they don't want it out there for the people to see in the nation. And I'm like, so someone can't raise their hand and just absolutely call bullshit? And they go, no, that's what's going on in China. And it's just the past 24 months, it's just rolling through your head where, if I don't wear a mask, I'm on a no-fly list. Or if I put something out about, heaven forbid, someone had an adverse reaction to the vaccine, that's getting ripped down. What don't they want you to know? And to what end will they go so that they can keep pushing that narrative? Because the more of us that speak up and speak out, when the narrative crumbles and we stop complying and the world knows the truth, it's game over. And so that's where we're rallying from all corners of the United States and frankly around the world. There's been people marching around the world, throughout Europe, Australia, everywhere. Canada, right? So people know now. And frankly, people are getting to the point where they didn't even think they were being bold. They just thought they were sharing their truth. So if Facebook's the bathroom wall that it is, and you're going to say, hey, so-and-so's baby's too, and, you know, I got a puppy today, and by the way, I got a shot, and now I have Bell's palsy.
Yeah, and then that gets pulled, and then you're spreading misinformation, which
Yeah,
is
that's exactly right.
it drives me crazy. And the bigger thing I would say is that as far as the censorship, even in the American realm, Canadian realm, the North American realm, is this whole irritating narrative that if the opposite side wants to speak out and challenge what's out there in the mainstream media, then we get flagged with you're spreading misinformation that's dangerous and harmful, and it's going to kill people and do more harm than good, and we know better. And I mean, you know, the whole thing, and it's, to me, it just pisses me off because you're right. Let both sides have their say. It's free speech. Let us, if we're crazy, say crazy things and let people figure it out for themselves. But it's frightening when you get this. I mean, it reminds me of like, wow, one of the Margaret Atwood novels. What is it, The Handmaid's Tale, or those type of books? When it's just like, no, this is the society we've deemed that this is the way it will be. We will control the speech. We will control everything because we know better. I mean, when you get this draconian and what would be the word politically? I'm thinking dictator mentality.
Sure.
Then yeah, you get one-sided thinking, and this is where we're at. So I'm excited to see people like you and people stepping out, doing things that actually stand up for our freedoms and rights, and just basically being a patriot and saying, no, let the people speak out. Let the people that have been, like you said, world-renowned experts in this, doing this, who are questioning the narrative, why can't they have their say? And I think that's kind of what you're doing with Patriot Impact, right? It's like trying
Yeah.
to motivate people to, instead of just saying, I'm tired of this is bullshit, I can't post my stuff on social media, or everything I try to look up and find has been taken down, or you have to go to Rumble and all these places. Motivating people to stand up and empower change where you can, like locally, nationally, and find your place to actually get involved, like at the school level, the school board level, the local council level. Just start getting involved to
Everything.
make a change and say, we're not going to be silenced. We're not going to take it.
It is not enough to complain about gas prices and critical race theory and your toddler learning about pedophilia and sexuality at age 4, or complain about the election or the mandates if you're just going to shut off the TV or go to a different social platform because you got banned. That's not good enough. And I have many friends who, and they know I'm a hot ticket as far as all of this, that I say, you pay taxes, right? And they go, sure. And I go, you don't like the gas prices? And they go, yep. And I go, what would you think if your 4-year-old was learning about fellatio or things of that nature? And they go, that's awful. And I go, and what do you think about the election or the mandates? Well, the election doesn't add up to me and the mandates are unconstitutional. I go, so what are you going to do about it? I guess as much as you think politics doesn't affect your life, it affects your life immensely. So now burying your head in the sand isn't good enough. Aren't you tired of being sick and tired? Aren't you tired of it? Don't you want to do something?
I know we have these discussions with friends, family members, which is even the hardest, where we start to talk about this stuff, and then they take the turtle approach, and then they just cower and pull their head back into the shell and go, well, I'm just over it. I just don't want to think about it. I turn off the TV. I turn off everything. I just like do my little thing and comply, and I hope it just goes away. And it just makes me even more frustrated.
Right. Well, it does go away. It goes away when you go away. I mean, and that's the thing that people don't understand, right?
Sure.
It's like your spouse doesn't come home every weekend. Your spouse doesn't come home till 4:30 in the morning, okay? And they smell a little smoky and a little drunk, and you're just like, and there's lipstick that, on his collar, and you kind of go, well, I just don't want to deal with it. It's too stressful. I'll just make it go away. Well, it will go away because it's going to go away in a really horrific divorce because, you can't pull your head out of your rear and see what's actually going on. And, that's kind of a natural first instinct is to kind of go, okay, well, we'll just wait this out. But eventually you have to say, look, this is wrong. This is evil in so many levels to use a crisis like this as a means of controlling people. I mean, there's two viruses. There was the original virus, which, unless some magical variant comes, it appears that it's over now. And then there's this political virus, which is 10 times worse. It's like getting HPV and you go, oh, this is horrible. I have these god awful warts. Unfortunately, you didn't realize that those god awful warts was going to give you cancer 10 years later. Well, now we're dealing with the cancer that the virus brought.
Yep.
And you better figure that out right away, or you're going to be having some horrific surgeries or death.
Yeah. I mean, there are people who, what's incredible is, whether it's the vaccine or the mask, that if you stand on the polar opposite side, I mean, there's been families broken up, relationships broken up. There's kids not talking to their folks. I mean, it's incredible what's going on. And so the Patriot Impact, because of how political medicine has gotten, took that into account. This is something that, at a federal level has affected every single one of us. If you've been on any sort of public transportation in the last 24 months, you've been affected. If you have a child in college and they're playing NCAA sports and they need a vaccine to compete as a track athlete, they're affected. And what's incredible to me is we're labeled as an anti-vaxxer if we go, I would just like to see the ingredients, informed consent. Okay, so what's in it? Now, I'm into fitness. Like you said, I have my pro card, Tim. So we track everything that goes in our mouths, okay? So the rule of thumb is if it swims, if it flies, if it comes from the ground or falls off a tree, if it's one ingredient, it's mine to eat. When you flip over a protein bar and it has 18 ingredients and I need your credentials as doctors to read it, probably isn't that good for me. So I'm no more of an anti-fooder when I turn down the protein bar than when I take a look at a vaccine and I go, graphene oxide in this, and okay, all right, okay. And Dr. So-and-so, if I have a reaction, where do I stand? Who do I go to? Where do I go? What's my recourse? Nope, can't get into that. Okay, actually, it turns out I want to hold off. I think I'd like to hold off. I'm pretty healthy. And then, so when you have the mandates come in, now it's becoming political. Because first off, you say, who was the mandate? Because if we were all just hanging out with our friends and family and there wasn't marketing when you're walking around the Walmarts and Targets and Safeways of the world pushing this vaccine, you probably would just go, okay. People in China have been wearing masks for years, but for most of us, the flu vaccine every year, certain people go get the flu vaccine, but there wasn't a massive media money push behind it that everywhere you go in the world, or at least in the United States, I'll speak to, that it was going to get shoved down your throat. Celebrities were going to onboard with it, and you were going to get threatened in public transportation if your mask was slightly beneath your nose. I mean, so they've come at us from all angles, and that's the medical side. The Patriot Impact also looked at mothers who are getting labeled as domestic terrorists because they simply don't want their child learning that white people are bad. And a black man will stand up and say that. So we're getting hit from so many angles, and I think they've used the virus to wear us down. That, we're just so distracted with this over here that's fine what they're doing in the schools, and that's fine what they're doing over here, and it's fine that they're burning our cities and looting and rioting. So it's come full circle, and now who's left are the people that say, nope, I've had enough, and I'm going to do something. And now we have professionals, we have doctors, dentists, lawyers, blue-collar folks, business owners, self-employed, stay-at-home moms coming out of the woodwork, and they go, well, I'm going to do something, boy. I don't know what it is, but I've had enough. And now people are really going back. I've seen more 1776 shirts in the past 28 months than I've seen in the first 35 years of my life. Wow. So people are now saying, that's it. So looking to have the pendulum swing the other way on all of this. But it's going to take all of us to do it.
Right.
Excuse me.
What comes to mind for me too is, I always have these devil advocate arguments pop through my head because I really like to sort through them and be able to kind of refute them or think about it. But this whole narrative too about doing it for the greater good, where it's not. So that's great. You are fitness and you really monitor what you're putting into your body. But the whole argument of it's not just now about you; it's about your neighbor or your family members or your little society where you live. I mean, that you could pass it on to someone else. And do you want to kill your grandpa or you want to be responsible for all this? Where they're laying on the guilt trip to us to be responsible for the health of the greater society is a very frightening thing. And it's interesting that they use that and they try to put more morality and mix it in there when a lot of this is not even really based on any kind of uh, moral based principles, but then they kind of stir that into the pot and really, I think, use that as a really strong
Yeah,
way to twist people's arm. Do you know what I mean?
no,
So
of course. But I've said this for years. The only authority is moral authority. I mean, ultimately, that's what people answer to, right? And so, whether you're religious or not, that's really the authority, right? It's what Napoleon said: no one will die for me if I promise them all the money in the world, but they'll line up in droves to volunteer for my army because they get this little ribbon. So it's the idea that the moral authority, you're fighting for something bigger than yourself, something bigger than money, and that's just wars of conquest.
but taking the shot was
Okay.
also pushed on those who didn't really want to get on the side of getting
Oh,
the
no.
experimental shot, as you're doing it for the greater good. You're doing it
Right.
for your country and the world,
Right,
because we're in a pandemic.
But what if the reality is what it appears to be, which is the shot does not the shot does not stop transmission. So me getting it means nothing to anybody else.
Correct.
Right.
Number one,
Right.
and number two, as Omicron came, it became fairly obvious that the shot probably has negative efficacy. In other words, the people that are the most vaccinated are the most likely to be infected. So
and we see and we know that now because and people are recognizing that as more data comes
Right.
out. But I just was trying to point out how the arguments and the arm in to get people to do things. I mean, it's really utopian to me how they will then try to put the onus on you to be responsible for the greater good and the person around you to take the vaccine.
Yeah, but that's why you have that's why you have constitutional principles, and that you have to adhere to them. You have to say these are the rules of the game. Okay, it's 3 outs in baseball per inning. It's not 5 because the special team comes up to bat and they get an extra 2 outs. It's not how it works. It's like, well, this is an emergency. Okay, in emergencies, can you use emergency powers? Yes, for a short period of time, until you recognize it's not an emergency anymore, and you should be using it like fire, very carefully. We've been in an emergency state for 2.5 freaking years, and there's no emergency. There's no emergency anymore. There was an emergency for maybe never at all. I mean, most of it was panic porn that was exploded because of what happened in Italy and what happened in New York. And I am convinced, I want to say this one thing about the mandates. I am convinced the reason we got mandates was not because that was necessarily their goal. I don't know that it was. It may have been, it may not have been. I think we got mandates because from the original data that came out about the vaccines and about the emerging data as they were rolled out to volunteers, it became fairly clear they weren't going to work very well. And the only way they could spike this and bury it and bury the data was to get rid of the control group. And so the way you got rid of the control group is you mandated everyone, including children, be vaccinated, and you completely muddied the scientific waters. There was no 2 clear groups. There was basically one group. And so, and then the digital, what I would call the digital fuckery that goes on in how they calculate relative risk reduction and all this is just complete insanity. And that's been through pharma for decades now, where, you take a small, tiny benefit and you blow it up into like massive differences when it's really no difference at all. So I mean, it's just, I'm done.
Well, as they are finding out, you're never quite vaccinated enough. And I think there's a quote that if a government has to lie to you, you know, coerce you, persuade you, disarm you, deplatform you, and all, how good is it really?
Yeah,
And so COVID, you know, is over. It's something that we're going to have to live with. We've lost a lot of people, but for the people who never wanted it and did their homework on it, as Peter McCullough said yesterday, I have to decide whether I'm going to buy groceries this week and have a job on Friday or take something that I don't even want. And it's coercion. And so you say, if that was my health choice, I mean, do I really have a choice? And I guess something else Peter said, how important is your health to you? And who should be in control of that? Is that the government or is that you yourself? Because you see parents and their children are playing Little Ad or Little League, and you know, they go, well, in order for Tommy to play, he needs the shot. And you have some parents who are like, that's it, he's not playing. Their medical freedom isn't for sale. So whatever things they were going to do are off the table. I've already had that happen to me several times in several instances where people go, well, Marnie, aren't you just going to get the shot for that? And I go, oh, I would it's not even an option. I just won't participate in that. It's not for sale. And on the other side, you have parents who go, it's like telling Tommy he needs a pair of cleats. And the mother goes, okay, well, where do I go? I'll go get him the shot right now.
Mm-hmm.
And they just don't know what they don't know. And so it's unfortunate because they're not showing the truth of the adverse reactions. And
I was going to say, what's sad is that people look at it the same as school vaccines. They go, well, you have to have these certain vaccinations to go to school, to go to public school, you know, check the boxes for measles, mumps, rubella, etc. But it's not the same because it's still brand new. It's still experimental. It's not been tried and true. But people naively think and trust. So,
well, yeah, right. But just because they name it a vaccine doesn't mean it's measles vaccine. Doesn't mean that it's you know, Haemophilus influenza vaccine, which is in the last 30 years is probably the single greatest vaccine that's come out in the last 30 years. I don't think there's any question of it. It's amazing what that's done. But just because you name it something doesn't mean that that's what it is, right? I mean, you can call rape unmotivated lovemaking, and you can make it sound whatever you want. It's still an egregious crime, you know.
Yeah.
That's correct.
Hey, so I'm kind of trying to change gears kind of quickly because I know our listeners will probably be wondering the same thing. So, were you living in Maine when COVID hit and moved to Florida,
No,
or
that's a great question.
Okay.
So I was born and raised in Maine, and I've lived in Florida since 2016. So I was here.
Okay.
So after 2 weeks, Ron DeSantis opened the churches, businesses were open, and we've really been open. You know what I mean? So, in going back home, I'm from Portland, Maine, and forgive me, I'm battling some awful allergies. So for everyone watching,
Yeah, there and around the whole country, even on the west side, it's just killing us over here too.
Yeah, just absolutely awful. So, when I grew up in Portland, and the heart of Portland is the Old Port with cobblestone streets, and it reminds you of a miniature Boston, and it's thriving, and we're known for seafood, and it's just beautiful. And you go home, and half of the businesses are under, and that was something else that in attending some of these conferences and building the Patriot Impact is 90% of the small businesses that we've lost, which we've lost millions of small businesses, they'll never reopen their doors. But yet the Amazons, Walmarts, Targets of the world, they've made a killing. They've made a killing.
And they've been allowed to stay open. Imagine that.
Correct. So as much as people say they don't care about politics, everything you do, eat, buy, wear, sleep, taxes, where you live, someone's in charge of that. Just so that you know. As my, ignorance isn't bliss on this one.
Right.
This isn't, no, it's coming at you and at all angles. And so we've had a lot of people, like I said, who want to get involved. And the Patriot Impact was an answer to creating a consolidated resource for Americans who wish to step up and take back the country and get involved. And it's not enough to sit on the sidelines anymore. It's a big arena and it's wide open. And the time for leadership is now. And so
So take us through the Patriot Impact.
okay.
Exactly.
Sure.
You know, I mean, we know it's a website, but for our listeners, tell everybody like exactly what it is, the platform, how people get involved, and yeah.
Yeah. Are you guys seeing my screen okay?
Yes, we can see your
Okay.
screen.
Fantastic. So, here's the menu bar up here. So we have impact, creed, events, places, candidates, FAQs, just a shop, and then account and login.
Okay, and
And
so we're
so
not. I was just going to interrupt because we're not video for our listeners, but basically it's on the patriotimpact.com, correct?
Yeah. Are you guys not seeing my screen?
No, I
No,
can
we can
see
see
it,
it.
but
Okay.
because our podcast is audio only, I was just going to tell our
Oh,
listeners
okay, good. Yeah. Yeah.
while you continue to talk us through where to
Sure.
click. It is thepatriotimpact.com, which I'll link. So keep going,
Yes.
Marnie.
Yep. So at the patriotimpact.com, that's our menu bar at the top. And just on the homepage, I mean, there's a brief video of me, but down below we have, what our acronym of impact means, which means influencing many people and changing together. And we quote JFK here and just saying, so my fellow Americans, ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country. And off to the left-hand side on the homepage, we have find your state, register to vote, join your local GOP, be a poll worker, promote your event, shop Patriot places or businesses and organizations, and then be an agent of change. And so over on the right-hand side on the homepage, we have, as far as getting involved, that if you're irritated from watching your country fall apart around you, we are asking you to get out of your comfort zone and get involved in your local community. Stand up to a whole host of issues that we as Americans are facing today. Mask and vaccine mandates, critical race theory, election integrity, medical myths and disinformation, cancel culture, big tech censorship, and accelerated inflation. From showing up to school board meetings to running for office, becoming an agent of change is the last thing the left wants you to do. And so really everything, excuse me, that we've been talking about here, these first few minutes, is really just that. It ties into everything as far as what's going on here. It's not just medical. Medical is one piece of it, and it's a very large piece. But part of the medical myths and disinformation has to do with censorship. So it all ties in. And then down below, we just have other influencers, and you guys will be going up here on here as well, that have been censored, So folks like Dr. Tim and May, I mean, and other folks, we have people who have been censored. We're putting them up. We have Dr. Simone Gold, Dr. Peter McCullough. We have Donald Trump, Michael Lindell, a whole host of patriots and people who have just stood up to important issues today that, you have Wiki and CNN saying one thing and Facebook, and if you mention them, you're deplatformed, and these people can't post what they want either. And so we have direct links to their websites. And so the core of getting involved, okay, if you go to the Impact tab, which is the first tab at the top, when you click Impact, you'll scroll down and you'll see you also can access the United States Constitution, the Declaration of Independence, and the Bill of Rights right from our website. You would go to find your state. And so if I go down to Florida, since that's where I am, I can click on Florida, and we are going to tell you who's running as far as, governor, lieutenant governor. In this case, we have Ron DeSantis here in Florida. Our attorney general is Ashley Moody. We have Secretary of State, Treasurer, Auditor, and so on. We also break down every single county in the entire nation. We have 3,142 counties. So how one state has operated the past 2 years, California hasn't operated as Oregon has. And Maine hasn't operated as Nebraska has, and Florida hasn't operated as Nevada, and all that. So we're really finding out through these last 2 years that it really matters who is in charge, who is leading your state and your county. And so you can find your county by going down. Now, excuse me, I happen to live in Brevard. So if I click on Brevard, it'll literally take me to that county page. And from there, I can find out events that are going on. I can see what's going on. I could attend an event. I could switch my party affiliation as far as voting. We have the midterms coming up and how important it is to vote. And up above, we also have where you can register to vote. You can become a poll worker. You can see the state calendar, the state GOP website, and where to vote. And then also, Tim and May, we have where you can meet candidates, because now more than ever, again, people are wanting to get involved or they want to run. But we think that it's important that more than just when you get your ballot, that you actually, you don't go Google Jim Smith and you go, okay, I think Jim Smith stands here because this is what's on Jim Smith's website. We want to know about the candidates long before the decision comes to vote for these folks. So we want to know where you stand on the issues. And also we want other people who know of these people to give them a rating, almost like a restaurant rating or a 5-star Google rating. Where 1 is they're probably not very good and 5 is they're fantastic. And so, you can click on meet candidates and you can see, we posted DeSantis because he's running for governor again, and you can click on it and it will have his message, all of his social links, what he's running for, his website. And so again, we're trying to take a macro concept and break it down at a very micro level, because that's how important it is. The presidential election only comes once every 4 years, but what about all those days and the years in between? They matter so much.
Right, and we've seen that, just as early as a week or 2 weeks ago with, one of the things that Trump did that was really very efficient, and it was probably largely due to Ted Cruz, because apparently he was the guy that was kind of spearheading this, was putting like circuit court judges in place, federal judges, and Trump was like a machine at naming federal judges. And people are like, yeah, well, big deal. It's only the Supreme Court that matters. No, it's not. It's every other lower court. And Obama was actually apparently fairly lazy in that. He had tons of positions he could fill, and he just sort of largely ignored it. And Ted Cruz saw this, went to Trump and said, hey, we're going to get you a list of names. We're going to vet these people, and we're going to have you. And he filled, I don't know, what was it, like 400 or
it was crazy.
Hundreds.
I think he, as a president, appointed the most judges, to my knowledge.
Yep.
Yes. And I mean, and it's stunning what that does, because you get so used to, like, we live on the, the West Coast, and like the 9th Circuit or whatever it is, it's just super, super liberal and whatever. Well, it's like that for a reason.
Correct.
And so there's so much that goes on at this lower level that's critically important. Like, we interviewed a guy from Staten Island, John Matlin, who's a great guy. He's trying to get on the primary ballot in Staten Island, New York, 11th district. And he's running into all of these problems with the Board of Elections, because he's not a, sponsored by any party, really. Right. I mean, he's running as a Republican, but he can't get on the primary ballot because he's not an establishment guy. And that's just insane. But if the Board of Elections wasn't corrupt, then it wouldn't matter. So all of this local stuff is critically important to, it's the oil in the gears, right? I
mean, it's a trickle flow flood of flowing out, the counties make up the states and the states make up our nation, and local action creates national impact. Because you look at 2 weeks ago, I landed on Easter. I flew back from Columbus, Ohio to Florida, and I landed on Easter, and I flew and I pushed the envelope, as you can imagine, with not wearing a mask. And 24 hours later, it was announced by one judge who saw that it was unconstitutional and said, nope, no more. It was going to keep extending and extending and extending and extending, that it was unconstitutional. And now the nation has a choice. They have a choice. So here's something that government, politics, it's gross and you don't want anything to do with it. Again, vaccines, masks, it comes right back to something that's medical. And the same is true for something of what your child is learning in school.
Yes.
And what's going on. I mean, so as much as we don't want to get into the political arena, and that doesn't mean that everyone has to run, but there's something you could do. If you don't like the way things are, this nation is so great and has such amazing principles that it was founded on. You can change it. You can do something. And so
I think
one judge,
a starting place for most people really is like at their local city council and school board. I mean, because most people, I don't know the data on the stats on how many people have kids, but the kids are learning this. The kids are the next generation that are going to impact the country. And it's a snowball effect. And so if you don't like what's happening at your school board and what your kids are learning and what kind of people they're going to become because of the influence from what they're hearing in schools, I mean, that's a obviously no-brainer place for me, like that I think of, that people just need to like get in there, make it heard, like push back, question these people that are in power, trying to push the narrative on your kids that are learning, and get involved.
Well, it's amazing because people that say that, none of this stuff is being broadcast or taught or whatever. So, we live in a rural logging area. It's wildly conservative, especially for Oregon, but still fairly libertarian. There's this sort of independent FU streak that runs through people that live on this part of the West Coast. And one of the nurses that I work with at a crisis pregnancy center that May and I do some volunteer work for, she went to give a relationship class to the school. And these are like, I think it was like 7th graders.
I don't even think they were. I think they were like in 4th through 6th grade. But anyway,
and she's like just getting demographic information. How old are you? What grade are you in? Are you a boy or a girl? Well, are you a boy or a girl? Because it was binary. It was male or female. Triggered these 12-year-olds. You're insensitive. You're anti whatever. You can't ask.
You have to ask us our preferred pronouns. You can't ask what sex.
And you sit there and you go.
And these are like kids in 4th through 6th grade.
I mean,
in rural conservative.
Yeah, like wow. I mean,
that is incredible.
Right.
Yeah. And people go, well, no, what? It's not being taught. And I'm going, well, where did they learn this then? I guarantee you they didn't learn it from their father that sets chokers and kills trees for a living. I guarantee you they learned it in school. Hello.
And social media and all the things. Yeah, it's silly.
It's
so, yeah. Like that one. We're trying to get a couple guests on that because that's like this whole follow the science, and I'm like, okay, we'll follow the science, and probably the most fundamental science is when you get a puppy and you flip it over and you see whether or not it has a penis is a really good way of determining.
I don't know, Tim. Are you a biologist? I don't know. Are you? I don't know. Yeah. Don't know.
And you sit there and you go, like I wonder sometimes if this stuff are almost false flags where they're seeing how insane people will be, and then they draw back a little bit, and then they push the insanity a little bit more, and they pull back a little bit. Like,
sure.
Like it's and the thing that people forget is not to Nazify everything, but the Jewish laws against Jews in Germany started very slowly, and they started in the early 30s. They started in like 1933. The gas chambers didn't start for 10 years.
That's correct.
But they did start someplace. And they started with, you can't run your business because you're a Jew and you're a public health risk. That's where it started. And then eventually it ends where all totalitarian regimes end, which is killing all the people that disagree with you.
Exactly.
So
your website, at Patriot Impact, I mean, it's awesome. And how can we help get the word out as far as spreading it via our podcast and social media for people to even get to know, man, elections are coming up, or I want to get involved? And
well, and that's where, so if you're hosting an event anywhere in the country, we want you to add your event. It could be a rally. It could be a school board meeting. It could be something that repeats. It could be a one-time march. It could be an First Friday art walk. It could be anything. We want you to add events.
Perfect.
And then also, if you're a conservative business, we want you to add your place, because where you shop is your vote. There's a lot of places that I don't shop anymore because I know the fundamental values that they stand on.
Mhm.
And I want to support businesses that share the same values that I do and not just turn a blind eye. So again, if you're a business owner, if you're hosting an event, we want you to get in here. Impact, you're going to find your county and again, go from there. But also the creed that we believe in, so that people truly understand the Patriot Impact, is that we believe in individual freedom, which includes medical freedom, folks, limited government, the rule of law, peace through strength, fiscal responsibility, free markets, and human dignity. And so tell your friends about it. You do need to create an account, which is free, in order to post an event or post a business or review a candidate or post yourself as a candidate if you're running. But it's a central hub. It's a resource. We're not going to rely on social media anymore. There is no deplatforming. We need to sidestep them entirely. Just plan on it. Depending upon what you're going to say, just plan on being censored just for speaking truth. That's where we're at now.
So what kind of vetting do you have a vetting process? Because I always get concerned about, false flag, crazy people getting in. We've noticed this in some groups that we've been in where you really wonder, people are like
moles planted in there.
Yeah,
that
yeah,
just
like they
upset
start
the apple cart.
espousing
Yeah.
really insane points of view in your web portal or whatever, and you're like, well, you're not really, like, you say you're on my team, but you're kind of nuts.
Well,
And
the candidate section, Tim, that's a great point. So on the candidate section, if someone's running for lieutenant governor or comptroller, whatever the case may be, we're coming up with a rating system that literally, when Trump talked about, we need to save the GOP from sellouts, rhinos, and losers, there's not another party coming down. This is it. And for those folks who are independent, as much as you're on the fence, that vote is on the fence too. And last time I checked, it's either a Democrat or a Republican winning presidential elections. That's just the facts. So you have to ask, if you want your vote to count, where do you want your vote to go? So for these people who are running, as we try to take back our country, we encourage you to review a candidate, and a 1-star rating is they're a complete rhino, and a 5-star rating is they're a complete patriot, and somewhere in between. We need to know that before they get into office. If someone could have reviewed, Nancy Pelosi or Mitt Romney or Mitch McConnell or Lindsey Graham or Susan Collins, I am from Portland, Maine. Susan Collins is not the Republican that most people think she was or is today by way that she votes. She just confirmed that Supreme Court nominee. So people who know these people, everyone knows them, everyone knows somebody. In order for these people to run, they have to have a backing. That's the facts too. So we encourage you to review them. As far as the business in place, it's somewhat easy to pick out, where a business stands and what they believe in. And as far as events, even at these events, Tim and May nationwide, you're seeing, I was just at Save a Generation tour yesterday with Dr. Ryan Cole and Dr. Peter McCullough. And I had heard the day before up in Jacksonville, there was a hiccup because a gentleman showed up with a vaccine police sign. And so, you're just seeing that. You're seeing that. When I've gone to a Trump rally, someone showed up and they got arrested because they were just spewing at the mouth and just literally harassing folks. So whenever you're trying to do good, there's always going to be someone who pushes back,
yeah, and that goes both ways. I mean, honestly.
Yeah.
but I don't know how many false flag people you have at liberal events. Maybe you do. Maybe BLM got infiltrated by people that just wanted to. I mean, that I'm sure that happened to a certain degree, where there's just like the Antifa kids that are kind of on nobody's side. They just there to raise hell and start fires and whatever else. Like, who knows?
Yeah. I think of January 6th. Yeah, it's just incredible. So, I think the one thing the left has over us is that they're extremely unified. And we need to come together. We need to unite, set our egos aside, and infiltrate our own communities, from school boards to like I said, who's running for governor, who's running for your local town mayor, city council, because I think this mask mandate, she just changed the game. And personally, that's how I thought it should have been since day one. If you want to get a vaccine, if you want to wear a mask, that's your choice, but you have the choice. You have the freedom of choice. But for us who do not want a vaccine or 6 vaccines or wear 27 masks, that's our choice. We all have choices, and we're a result of that. And so that's what's been lacking the past 2 years. And frankly, that's why you're seeing people step up and step out and speak up. And that's what we need more of. And that's what the Patriot Impact is all about. It's creating that resource.
Love it. Well, I'm going to definitely link this obviously in our show notes and spread it on our social media and spam friends to check it out and get involved. And
yes, please.
We usually always ask everybody like any last words or thoughts or anything we didn't cover that you want to bring up that we didn't talk about.
Yeah. I think you have to ask yourself that if not now, when? And if not you, then who? Because a lot of people are waiting for a knight in shining armor to come save us. And guess what, baby? It's us. If you don't like the way things are and you are a living, breathing, able body, and I personally, which is another reason that I found, created this resource with my partner, Rob Kafka, I deeply regret not serving in the military. And if that door is closed, there has to be something that I can do to help somebody out there beyond just myself. And
I love that quote, if not now, when? If not you, who? I mean,
now is the time for leadership. And one last thing that I didn't add is under the FAQs page and resources, we do have telehealth by state. We also broke that down by state. We also have COVID protocols, and we link out to America's frontline doctors as far as resources for masks and vaccine exemptions. So we did try to make that readily available for those people who are still facing that, because it's still going on. Everyone's going, COVID's over. And then all of a sudden you talk to your friend's husband's brother and their daughter is in college and she can't, play softball. And it's still, and you're like, God, when is it going to end?
No,
That's where we're at.
I'm a little nuts. And what is Fauci going to do with no COVID? Is
I'm sure he'll find something in his lab to create and do.
I think him and his wife have like the 50 Shades of Fauci dungeon, and like vaccine is the safe word. Vaccine, okay. I mean, I don't know if you've seen my impersonation of him with the 50 Shades of Fauci ball gag and whatnot, but I just have this twisted,
You have this twisted obsession with Fauci.
Well,
he's really done a number on people. I mean, he just came out last week saying that the CDC should have more power than the government.
Yes.
Like CDCs are. And, Dr. McCullough made a point yesterday of, if the vaccine at a very basic level, if we go back, a vaccine is to, reduce and stop transmission, spread, and death. Why would you ever get vaccinated after you have COVID? That ship sailed, folks. And you have people getting,
It seems so obvious that even people who are have like no that I'm friends with, or patients that have even no education beyond high school level and are tuning into that. It's like that makes no sense. I mean, so you don't need an advanced science degree. You don't need to be a physician to question that. Like, what the heck?
Right.
Why do I need all these vaccines if I've already had the illness? I mean, it's just like everything else.
It's like what Larry the Cable Guy says. That's like wiping before you poop. Don't make no sense. and so
it's literally that.
We really are wiping before we poop. It really is kind of I don't know. It's just nuts. But it's interesting how receptive people are. You approach the argument in a gentle, caring way.
Yeah.
I had
Yeah.
a couple that I saw last week for a preventative monoclonal antibody. There is a preventative monoclonal antibody for people that are immunosuppressed from whether it's medications they're taking, whether it's chemotherapy for cancer, et cetera, et cetera. They had driven down from the liberal bastion that is Portland. I had a tremendous conversation with them. They asked about another booster, or it came up, and I just said, well, why would you get a booster when you've never had COVID and you've already been vaccinated? And we know that the booster is the same as the virus that's been extinct now for at least a year and a half, if not 2 years. And you know what? We've just given you a monoclonal antibody that's going to last at least 3 months, if not 6 months, and give you equivalent, or actually we think much better protection. She goes, well, thank you for sharing that. I think that's a really good thing that you said. And it's just, it's not pointing your finger at people. It's not judging them. I mean, they're working with the information that they have, which is obviously skewed in a lot of ways. And I wasn't trying to make a point. I was
Sure.
just sort of throwing a little bit of a truth dart out there and hoping that it lands. And if they would have been resistant to it, that whatever, that's fine. I said, but do your own research, figure it out for yourself. It's your
Yes.
body.
Absolutely. Well, and that's the thing too. If you have a dog or a cat, you go, well, hey, they need a rabies vaccine annually. You go, okay. And the doctor calls you up and says, well, actually, I think the table's now 3 months. You go, okay. And then he calls you up 2 weeks later and says, actually, they need a third one. And you go, are you making money off me? Is something going on here? Because what we have going on is, this is similar to when I've watched documentaries on food and talking about FDA regulated with the dairy and meat industry. How much money am I making, or is someone making you by saying, I don't think you should get that product? Ask yourself. And why are doctors, some of the most world-renowned doctors, why are they willing to fight tooth and nail and lose it all? They are losing their shirts. They're getting sued. They're getting their life threatened to tell you to not take something. Boy, that's interesting. And then you look up how much money these vaccine companies have made and you go, huh. So do your own research. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I saw an excellent quote the other day. It said, I tried following the science, but it only led me to the money.
That's a great shirt waiting for me to buy.
I should do that. Well, just like my other shirt that I didn't have the balls to make, but I should have, because I should have taken it to Sturgis. I could have paid for my entire trip, which was guns don't kill people. Fauci kills people.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yahtzee.
That was a little edgy.
Yeah, I was like, I still need a medical license for a little while.
Let's keep your license for a little longer.
I'll just not do that yet.
Anyway. Well, this has been.
Yeah, it's been. No, I was just going to say thank you so much for the opportunity, and again, we're trying to take a macro concept and make getting involved in some form and fashion palpable, because we all follow folks like you, and we watch podcasters or news or social media and things like that, but it's out there, it's in la la land, and we need to make it palpable and tangible to those of us in our local backyard to stand up. And when you realize how big this nation is, it's going to take a whole slew of patriots to stand up and go, yep, had enough of that. And the moment we do, the more we do that, of we will not comply and don't tread on me, the narrative will come to a screeching halt rather quickly. So thank you to folks like yourself and people who are already standing up and getting the word out, for at least people to have the choice in all of these matters. That's what America was founded on. So
no, it's awesome. And sometimes I get stunned when I think of what we're fighting on the other side politically. Like we're fighting a team of octogenarians that have trouble word finding and shake hands in midair with nobody. I mean, there's a big push apparently in California from the Democrat Party to get rid of Feinstein because she's so demented. And then you go, well, Nancy, you're not far behind. And I'm like, don't they have a deeper bench? I mean, Ted Williams was a great baseball player. I wouldn't try to unthaw him and put him in the Red Sox, batting order now.
Sure.
It'd be a bad idea.
Yeah. We need more players, and we need more leadership. And there's, like I said, there's a lot of people who have lost it all, and they're willing to keep going. And now they say, well, I want to do something. And after going to these conferences, a ton of people are motivated, and with confusion comes inaction. With confusion comes inaction, right? And so a lot of people want to do something, but they don't know how to get involved. And I said, it's kind of like a farmer in the field with a rope. He doesn't know whether he's lost a cow or found a rope, but he wants to do something. He's motivated, and he's like, I don't really know what to do, but I got to do something. And so we're trying to bring it to you at the local level to step up and get involved and create change in your backyard, because that's what it's going to take from all of us. So I think we're certainly seeing how state by state, it's like it's its own country. And I guess I've kind of lived in a shell to an extent being in Florida, although I've traveled extensively over the last 2 years. But I go from here, where you don't have to have masks and vaccines, and if you do, that's your choice, and that's great, and that's your choice, to when I go to Napa Valley in California, last fall, that they pull out their what looks like a radar gun in baseball, and they take my temperature at my head, and then they ask for my vax card, and then they proceed to escort me out of the restaurant. And that was an example of, that's not a business or place where I'm willing to spend my money. I'm not going to do commerce with these people, and that's my choice.
I always jokingly say I want to see their hepatitis B vaccines from the cook that's in the restaurant in those places.
No.
I'm like, if you're going to see my stuff, I want to see yours.
I don't. I want to see their negative gonorrhea and chlamydia
Anyway.
screens. That's what I want to see. That's much more important to me.
Two things I'll close with. There were two situations over the past 2 years that really fired me up. And one was, I was actually leaving Portland, Maine after a family funeral. It was 5 a.m. and I have my USA gear on head to toe. It's a Sunday morning. I mean, it's early, right? And a woman comes down, and I immediately proceed to take off my mask. After I get through TSA, I had some water on me, so I'm drinking my water, and she comes down. She's not affiliated with Delta, none of that. And she goes, you not wearing your mask, that's a problem. You're the entire reason we're still in a pandemic, are folks like you. And I said, really? And she goes, yep. And I said, well, that's like asking me to wear sunblock to protect you from the sun. Your own health decision should be enough to protect you. If the vaccine is so robust and the masks work and your hazmat suit works, you should be bulletproof. And she proceeded to give me the middle finger. So we've created, this whole thing has divided us at it's created a lot of tension. And so we need to come together. We need to unite, vaxxed or unvaxxed, regardless of where you stand, and fight for the beliefs of what makes this country great. And then, that one that happened in Napa. And then the third one, or the second one I was going to tell you here, was I went to the dentist, and she asked me the same thing. She proceeded to take my temperature. And this was when the vaccines first came out. And she said, are you vaccinated? And without even thinking, how quick off the cuff, I said, how much money is in your bank account? What religion do you subscribe to? And what's your sexual orientation? And she kind of looked at me flabbergasted, like, wow, that's really forward. And I said, I'll forgive you for asking me if you forgive me for not telling you. That's none of your business. And she said, well, per ADA regulations, we can ask you if you have AIDS and you're HIV positive. I said, but you know what? You don't. You don't.
Exactly.
So you're either going to clean my teeth or you won't. And if you won't, I'll be going to the dentist next door. I will be going to your competitor. So if you're confident and comfortable and cozied up to asking me those questions, I am just as confident to walk. So there's nothing wrong with being, bold, and you can be polite about it. You don't have to be rude, but they need to know that it's out of line. And don't even get me going on HIPAA. So anyways, those were some situations.
I love it.
But it's interesting because, here in liberal, Eugene, Oregon, there's a dentist
Nike
that put up massive billboards and said, we don't care if you're vaccinated, unvaccinated, gay, straight. We don't care. We just take care of your teeth. And that's basically, it's a synopsis, but that was basically his message.
Yep.
And we're friends with the guy that wrote the ad copy and does some advertising for him. And he's like, dude, you're kind of pushing the envelope. This is a really, blue city. He said, I don't care. It's what I believe in. And it's just me, and I'm going to be me. It's my business. How I run. It's my problem. He goes, all right, I'll write you the copy. The guy had to hire 2 or 3 more dentists. He was so busy. And
That's
he
what I'm
wasn't just
talking
the thing
about
that
right
was the
there.
most fascinating when you talk about coming together.
Yep.
The thing that was the most fascinating was he wasn't just attracting, libertarians or conservatives. He had a bunch of people that came in that said, "We don't agree with you, but we know you're courageous and we know we can trust you because you're a man of courage. So I want you to take care of my kid because you stand for a principle," which was fascinating. Here's these people that are pro-vax, pro-mandate, pro-everything, but they saw that there was somebody with enough balls to stand up for what they believed in, and that principle trumped everything else.
It's incredible. Yeah. Yeah, when
I
people
mean,
realize how politicized everything else has come from sports and school and any of that, it's like, so what does critical race theory have to do with learning addition and subtraction? I'm not really sure about that. Let's get back to addition and subtraction, kids. And that's where we're at, and that's what the Patriot Impact is about: is focus, follow one course until successful. If it's math, it's math. If I go to a baseball game, I'm here to watch baseball. If I'm here to clean your teeth, let's take x-rays. Let's go. Let's get the polish and roll. I appreciate you guys.
excellent. Well, this has been super fun.
Yeah.
I think it will be, to not be too punny, but very impactful for our listeners. And we got to have you on again, and because, like I said, there's bunny trails we could go on for hours. And you never know, we might be seeing you in person here in the next few weeks, which would be really cool. We've
You
met a
never
few
know.
people we've done podcasts with and have not been disappointed one single time. It's really been awesome. So we look forward to
I
that.
pray not to disappoint. Yeah.
No,
Thanks
I
for
don't think
putting
so.
up with my allergies. Gosh.
Oh, hey, people relate, I think, all over the country, but especially here. I've been suffering myself, and so my eyes have been burning the whole time, but you can't see it. So, hey, or you can't hear it. You can't hear my eyes itching. Ah! So thanks so much, Marnie. Great chatting with you, and we know everybody's going to love this episode that listens to us on the regular. So great to see you.
Thank you, guys.
Well, I mean, again, these guests, we could go on and on and on for hours in a million different bunny trails, but the bottom line of what she's saying is, we need to get involved in our local communities to kind of right the ship, and I think that's it. That's it. Running for your town council, running for school board, getting, speaking up at various public forums. I think really that's where it all starts. The true grassroots is what's going to change things. The slacktivism, sitting there clicking stuff and sending money once in a while, is probably not enough anymore. When you see the forces that you're fighting against, such as the World Economic Forum and whatnot. So, yes, I loved her line about the farmer that found a rope in his yard didn't know if a cow ran away or he just found a rope. And so direction is a powerful thing, not just passion.
I'm just super excited and motivated by her passion, excitement, and commitment to impacting change in this country. And I just see it as a real positive sign that the generation behind us is there to take the reins back. And that's hopeful, and it makes me excited. And I hope that makes everybody else motivated and excited to get off their butts and stand up and do something and not just complain. So, Marnie, you really are inspiring, and I think she's started a wonderful, wonderful place for everybody to start. So we will spread the word on the Patriot Impact and link that, and everybody needs to get on there and share it.
Absolutely.
All right, everybody. I hope you enjoyed this episode. We hope that you will share with your friends, family, and just one person help spread the word of BS Free MD. Check us out on Instagram and Facebook, where I usually link all the shows and some of the other shenanigans we're up to, how we've been guinea pigging our bodies lately with diet, exercise, and mostly some experimental therapies. And we'll be sharing those on episodes coming up. So join us on social and see what we're up to. And that's the end of that one. It's no secret that medicine is a bit, uptight. That's why Tim and I created BS Free MD, to mix things up a little and have fun in the process. Besides, we are having these exact same discussions all the time, so we thought we might as well invite everyone to the party. If you really like us, you can get plenty more, and maybe see one of Tim's cool tattoos on our Instagram or Facebook pages at BS Free MD. See you next time.
But we try to keep BS Free MD as raw and real as possible. We can't be held responsible for any medical decisions or discussions had as a result of what you've heard on the show. We know, bummer. But the truth is, we really do care about your questions. So feel free to reach out to us by email at doc@bsfreemd.com.